No one talks about apartment 2FI, but I could smell the lemons' surreal drama mystery. They told me to avoid apartment 20F. Not because it was haunted or dangerous, or even occupied by someone unpleasant. It was subtler than that, more like a lingering discomfort people couldn't quite name. Everyone just seemed to look the other way when they walked past that door in the hallway. Even the building's handyman, Gregor, who had the nerve to crawl around the boiler room like a rat, refused to step inside 2F unless he was paid double. When I moved in, top floor, unit 40D, I didn't think much of it. Urban legends tend to fizzle fast when you're behind on rent and your new place has working heat and no visible mold. The building itself was what you'd expect for an aging complex on the edge of the city, flaking beige paint, a cracked mailbox labeled "Do No TS Lam," and a patchy courtyard where weeds had long since replaced the grass. I signed the lease after 10 minutes and a handshake with the landlord, who never once mentioned the incident from 5 years ago. I only learned about it later, from the woman in 3B, who smelled like lilac soap and only whispered when she talked about it. She said a man had vanished from 20F, left all his things behind. Wallet, clothes, groceries in the fridge. Just gone. Cops didn't find anything suspicious, but she insisted something wasn't right. Said she still heard things. She moved out a month later, left a note in the laundry room that just said, "Don't listen to the walls." For the first few weeks, life settled into a rhythm. I worked nights, so I slept during the day, and the building was blissfully quiet. I didn't interact much with my neighbors. You could go days without seeing anyone in the halls, like everyone was playing their part in a silent play. But then the smell started. Faint at first, barely noticeable. Just the sharp tang of lemons, like furniture polish or floor cleaner. It clung to the stairwell outside 20F, but no one ever went in or out. I'd linger sometimes, pretending to check my phone by the mailboxes, waiting to see who lived there. No one ever came. No packages, no noise, just that citrus bite, always strongest in the evening. One Thursday, I found a single slice of lemon on the floor outside the door. Fresh too, still wet, seeds intact. I kicked it with the toe of my boot, half expecting someone to burst out and accuse me of trespassing. Nothing happened. I told myself it was probably from a grocery bag that split open, or a kid playing around, though there were no kids in our building that I knew of. I went upstairs, ate a cold dinner, and tried to forget it. But by morning, another lemon slice was there. 2, actually, arranged in a perfect half circle, as if someone had deliberately placed them that way. I stared at them longer than I should have, unease crawling up my spine. That evening, when I got home from work, there were 4 slices. That was when I started losing sleep. I asked Gregor about it in the basement one night. He was fixing something under the sink and muttering curses in Polish. When I brought up 20F, he froze. Not dramatically, not like a movie, but in a way that felt real and cold. He shook his head, wiped his hands on a filthy rag, and said, "That place. Bad air. You breathe too much of it. You forget who you are." He laughed like it was a joke, but he didn't look up again. I tried to laugh it off, too, but the lemon smell only grew stronger. Some nights, it leaked up the stairwell, worming its way under my own door. I started waking up at odd hours, heart pounding like I'd been running. I'd dream about someone slicing fruit in the next room, the knife hitting the cutting board again and again. I even thought I heard humming once. Soft, female, tuneless. I told myself it was just my neighbor's TV or some weird acoustics. But I started keeping my lights on. Then things began to move. At first, it was small. My shoes weren't where I left them. A glass was missing from the cupboard and turned up in the fridge. I blamed myself, exhaustion, the usual excuses. But then one morning I found my door unlocked. Not open, just the bolt unlatched, like someone had been inside and left quietly. I asked the landlord if anyone had keys to my unit. He looked confused, said the locks were changed last year, and only he and I had access. I didn't mention 20F. I just nodded and went back upstairs, locking both the bolt and a new chain I installed that afternoon. And yet it kept happening. The air felt heavier. My dreams became more vivid, always centered around citrus and water. I saw a bathtub filled to the rim, yellow slices floating like petals, and a figure submerged just beneath the surface. I'd wake up gagging, sometimes with the faint taste of rind on my tongue. I stopped sleeping altogether. I'd pace the hallways at night like a ghost, sometimes ending up near 20F without meaning to. The door was always closed, no name on the buzzer, no lights from beneath the frame. Just silence and that smell. One night I pressed my ear to it. At first, I heard nothing. Then, after several seconds, something faint, a wet sound, like a body being lowered into water. That's when I started taking notes. I bought a notebook and began recording everything. Dates, times, the number of lemon slices I found. I charted the smell's strength, compared it to barometric pressure, weather patterns, even moon cycles. I didn't know what I was trying to prove. Maybe that I wasn't crazy, that something was happening. I set up a motion camera in the hallway aimed at the door to 20F. But the footage never showed anything unusual. The lemon slices would appear, but no one placed them. The camera would blink and skip a few frames, like it glitched every time movement should have been recorded. I replaced the camera. Same thing. I stopped telling people. I knew how it sounded. I kept working, barely functioning, held together by caffeine and stubbornness. But then I started seeing her. Not clearly, just glimpses. A figure standing at the far end of the hallway, hair dripping wet, head tilted slightly. Once in the lobby mirror behind me. Once through the glass of the laundry room door. She never moved, never blinked. I'd turn around and she'd be gone. Her presence didn't feel malicious. It felt sad, like she was trapped. The turning point came on a Sunday. I'd down to check the mail, and when I turned back toward the stairs, the door to 20F was open. Just a crack. Enough to see that soft yellow light spilling from inside. My heart stopped. I didn't move for a full minute, just stared at that sliver of space. Then, without fully meaning to, I stepped closer. The smell was overwhelming now, so sharp it made my eyes water. I reached out and pushed the door gently. It creaked open on a hinge that hadn't been used in years. Inside it was empty, or so I thought. The apartment was pristine, untouched by time or tenants. The furniture was mid-century, stylish in an eerie way, as if someone had carefully curated the space for a catalog shoot. But everything had a thin film of dust, except the bathtub. It gleamed, spotless, full. The water shimmered, lemon slices floating on the surface in symmetrical circles. And there she was, sitting in the tub, eyes open but unfocused, lips parted like she was mid-sentence. Her skin was pale, translucent, but she wasn't dead. Not exactly. She looked at me fine and I couldn't move. Not out of fear, but because something else took hold of me. Like the air had thickened, slowed me down. She raised one hand, fingers trembling, and pointed at the wall. There, carved into the tile behind her, were words I still don't understand. Not a language I recognized. But I saw them clearly. I saw them burn, and then the door slammed behind me. When I turned, she was gone. The water was gone. The apartment was dark and dry and silent, and I was alone. Except, I wasn't, because when I stepped back into the hallway, I found a note on my door, written in the same script from the bathroom tiles, and underneath it, a fresh lemon slice. Still wet. I didn't open the note. Not right away. I stood in front of it for hours. It felt like just staring at the curl of paper pressed under the lemon slice like a ritual offering. The hallway was dead silent, that kind of unnatural hush that makes your ears ring, like the building itself was holding its breath. I reached out, hands trembling, and peeled the note from the door. The lemon slice stuck to it for a moment, then fell to the floor with a soft, wet thud. I didn't pick it up. I took the note inside, locked every bolt and chain on my door, and stared at under the glow of the kitchen light. The symbols, if that's what they were, looked older than language. Circular, intertwining lines that reminded me of vines or knots or water patterns. I traced them with my finger, half expecting something to happen, but nothing did. No visions, no voices, just silence. Still, I couldn't throw it away. I kept it in the drawer where I used to keep bills and take out minutes. After that night, the dreams changed. They weren't just water and lemons anymore. They were rooms. Rooms I'd never seen but could describe in perfect detail when I woke up. Green wallpaper peeling at the corners. A grandfather clock missing its hands. A mirror that showed the back of your head instead of your face. I started sketching them. Page after page of things I couldn't have known. It wasn't until I showed one of the drawings to the woman in 4A that I realized what I was really seeing. She glanced at the sketch, went pale, and said, "That's inside 20F's. I saw it once, before I moved in. The landlord left the door open during repairs. I never told anyone what I saw because..." She trailed off, eyes wide. Because it was different when I looked again. It rearranged itself. I didn't press her for more. She moved out 3 days later, didn't say goodbye. I tried to convince myself it was just a mental spiral. Lack of sleep, high stress, maybe even a gas leak. I called the city inspection office to report a possible leak in 20F. They showed up 2 days later. I waited by the mailboxes, pretending to flip through ads while they entered the building. A woman and a man, both in dull gray uniforms, clipboards in hand. They knocked on 20F, no answer. Knocked again. Then the woman touched the doorknob and recoiled like it burned her. I saw her look at her palm. The man leaned in, said something I couldn't hear, and they both stood still for a moment. Then they left, fast. Didn't knock on any other door. I followed them outside, asked if everything was okay. The man said, "No leak. Stay out of that unit." They never filed a report. I know because I called 3 times afterward, and there was no record of their visit. By now, I was too deep to leave it alone. I stopped going to work. I stopped answering texts. My fridge was empty except for mustard and baking soda, but I didn't notice. I spent all my time on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by open notebooks, symbols, diagrams, lemon peels drying into brittle curls. The more I studied them, the more they seemed to move when I blinked. One night I looked up from my sketches and realized the lemon smell was inside now. Not faint, not lingering, but heavy and alive. I checked every corner, every cabinet. Nothing. Until I opened the bathroom door. The tub was full, not mine. Mine hadn't worked in months. The landlord said something about old pipes, never fixed it. But now it was full, gleaming, still. Slices floating in a perfect spiral. I stepped closer. My reflection was wrong. It blinked when I didn't. Moved its hand when I stayed still. I slammed the door shut, heart racing, breath ragged. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit. I stood in the kitchen, holding a knife, waiting for something to come through the walls. It didn't, but the next morning my neighbor from 5th C knocked. He looked off, pale, twitchy. He never talked to anyone, not even in passing. But now he stood in my doorway, eyes wild, and said, "Do you hear it?" I didn't answer. He kept talking. "It keeps dripping from above, but there's no leak. I took apart the ceiling. There's nothing there." He leaned closer. "But the lemons keep showing up in my sink." He turned and walked away. A week later, someone else lived in 5th C, a young woman with headphones always on. When I asked her about the previous tenant, she looked confused. "I've been here for months," she said. "No one's lived here before me." I knew that wasn't true. I had heard his voice. I had seen him, but I didn't argue. I just nodded and walked away. The building started changing after that. The floorboards warped even in summer. The hallway lights flickered more often, but only near 20F. One night the elevator stopped on its own at the 2nd floor, even though no one pressed the button. When the doors opened, the lemon scent hit me like a slap. I didn't get out. I pressed the button for my floor and stared at the digital display, which now showed a symbol instead of a number. One I recognized. From the tile. From the mirror. I tried to move out. I packed in a frenzy, shoving clothes and notebooks into boxes without folding or sorting. I dragged them to the front door, but when I opened it, the hallway was gone. Not dark, not empty, just gone. Instead, there was a vast stretch of tiled floor, identical to the bathroom in 20F, endless. Slices of lemon dotted the path like breadcrumbs. I stepped back, slammed the door, and waited. Hours passed. When I opened it again, the hallway was back, but my boxes were missing. And so was my phone. I don't know how long I've been here now. The calendar on the wall still says June. It's October. Or November. Or maybe February. The days don't make sense anymore. The light outside never changes. My windows look out over a street I don't recognize. People walk by, but their faces are wrong. Too smooth, too still. I once saw myself walking past, carrying a lemon. I waved. He didn't. 2 nights ago, I woke up underwater, gasping, but my bed was dry. My sheets smelled like citrus. The radio turned on by itself and played a woman's voice humming that same tuneless melody I first heard outside 20F. I screamed at it to stop. It didn't. I unplugged it. It kept humming. I've stopped trying to make sense of it. The symbols aren't instructions. They're a map, but not a map of places. A map of minds, of rooms inside people. Some doors, once opened, never close again. I think 20F is one of those doors, a place that remembers every person who enters and reshapes itself around their fears, their memories, their guilt. I went back inside. Last night, I don't remember unlocking the door, but I was inside all the same. The tub was empty now, bone dry, cracked. The walls were covered in drawings I had made but never shown anyone, dreams I never told, secrets I thought were mine alone. At the center of the room, a chair, wooden. Familiar, my childhood chair from the kitchen table where I used to sit and listen to my parents argue in whispers. On it, the same note, the original one, the one I thought I kept safe in the drawer. Only now the symbols had changed. They formed a single word, one I understood in every language. ST. I don't think I have a choice anymore. The apartment is no longer just a place, it's a mind, a labyrinth of memory and regret and echoes that take shape. I try not to look in mirrors now. I avoid water. I hold my breath when I walk past 20FF, though I rarely need to anymore. The air in the building has changed. There's no lemon scent now, just the heavy, humid stillness of a place that has digested something. Or someone. Sometimes I see new tenants moving in. Bright-eyed boxes full of normal things. They smile, they wave, they ask about laundry hours and garbage pickup. I tell them it's all fine, that it's a good building. Friendly. Safe. I even say it smells nice. Like lemons. Always lemons. I think the building likes when I say that. Because every time I do, the hallway lights flicker twice. And the mirror in my bathroom smiles before I do. I've learned to stop asking questions. That's the first rule if you want to survive in this building. You don't ask why the lights above 20F flicker every third Tuesday, or why the wallpaper near the elevator peels and heals itself overnight, or why your mail sometimes arrives already opened with an extra letter that no one sent you, written in that same tangled script from the bathtub tiles. The second rule is even harder. You don't talk about the others. The ones who disappear, not all at once, not in any dramatic way. They fade. First their names are forgotten, then their faces blur, then their apartments go dark, even when the lights are on. And finally, someone new shows up and swears they've lived there all along. It's not possession exactly, it's replacement. And the building decides when it's your turn. I've kept my head down. Done what the building wants. I started placing lemon slices outside my own door. Every night. Perfectly spaced, crescent side up. At first, it was for protection. Some instinctive offering to whatever force lives in the walls. But now it's habit. Compulsion. I can't sleep unless they're placed just right. I think they keep me visible. Or maybe invisible. I haven't figured out which yet. Some nights I find extra slices placed beside mine. Larger. Thicker. From lemons I didn't buy. Those nights I stay awake. It's not just the building that changes you. It's the people who remain. The long-term ones. We don't speak often, but we notice each other. There's a man who walks the hallway in a red bathrobe every evening at 11:11. Never late. I've passed him 20 times, but I've never seen his face. Just the back of his head, with hair too dark and too thick for someone with hands as wrinkled as his. There's a woman on the third floor who only uses the stairs between 3:03 and 3:05 a.m. She hums while walking. Same melody as the one in my dreams. I've stopped using the stairs entirely. I once thought about leaving again, tried to call a moving company, but my phone only connects to one number now. No ringtone. Just silence on the other end. Not even breathing. I once stayed on the line for an hour. At 58 minutes, the lemon scent returned. At 59, my phone burned hot in my hand. At 60, the screen went black. I haven't tried again. Time passes strangely here. Days blend into nights. Sometimes the sun rises in the west, just slightly. Sometimes the clock skips a number. I'll look up, and it's 412, then 414. No one ever notices, except me. And maybe the girl in Lin B. She's the only child in the building. Or at least the only one I've seen. Maybe she wasn't always here, but I can't remember when she appeared. She plays hopscotch in the courtyard even when it rains. Her chalk never washes away. I once asked her what her name was. She said, 2-F. Just like that. No smile, no giggle, just that answer. I haven't spoken to her since. The deeper you sink into the building, the more it offers you. That's the third rule. If you give enough of yourself, time, memory, fear, it gives something back. My drawings have changed. I no longer use references. I just wake up and sketch, and hours later I realize I've drawn blueprints. Rooms, chambers that don't exist in any floor plan. Hidden corners of the building that shouldn't fit. But they're real. I found one. Behind the laundry room, down a staircase that wasn't there the day before. At the bottom was a corridor lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflected a different version of me. Some older, some younger. One was missing its eyes. Another smiled with someone else's teeth. I didn't go further. I turned around. When I returned the next day, the staircase was gone, but the reflection with the wrong teeth. He stayed. I still catch glimpses of him in polished surfaces. He moves just a beat too late. One afternoon, the woman from 6A knocked on my door. I'd never spoken to her before. She held a bundle of lavender in one hand and asked if I had salt. I gave her a whole bag. She didn't thank me, just said, "He's trying again." I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. The hallway outside 20F had begun to weep again. Tiny rivulets of water trickling from under the doorframe, carrying with it a trail of lemon seeds. I started marking my calendar with the word disturbance in red ink. I filled 3 months. Then the calendar started over. Same days, same order. No year. People still move in. I don't know why. Maybe they don't see it at first. Maybe the building hides its face. Or maybe it only chooses those who are already broken, who won't resist when it asks for more. A couple moved into 3C last week. I heard them laughing. I almost cried. It sounded so wrong, so clean, too real for this place. That night, the lemon smell crept under their door. The next day, only one toothbrush sat in their bathroom window. I never saw which one disappeared. I only saw the girl from 1B walking in circles in front of their door, whispering, "It's too soon. It's too soon." I've stopped eating. Not by choice. Nothing tastes right. Everything has that acidic undertone now, like I've licked the inside of a battery. My fridge hums but holds nothing. When I open it, I find only more slices. Neatly arranged. Always 9. Always fresh. I've tried throwing them out. They come back. I buried them once deep in the backyard. Dug a hole by flashlight, covered them with dirt and rock. The next morning, they were in my bed, laid on my pillow like a warning. The sheets soaked in citrus. I don't invite anyone over. The one time I did, a coworker named Leela, she stayed for less than 15 minutes, said the air made her dizzy, said she saw someone standing behind me. We were alone. She ran out. Quit work the next day. Deleted her social media, moved cities, I think. But I still get postcards with no return address. Just one word written in perfect cursive. Listen, listen. That's the part that terrifies me the most. Because there is something to hear if you stop long enough. If you sit in the center of your apartment, close every door and window, unplug everything that hums or ticks or buzzes, and you wait, you'll hear breathing. Not your own. Deep, slow, patient. Like something enormous asleep behind the drywall. Like the building itself is alive and dreaming and aware. I've only done it once. That was enough. Because the breathing paused, and then it matched mine. Now I play music. Constantly. Old jazz vinyls. Anything warm. Anything human. It's not to drown out the sounds. It's to make them forget I'm listening. I think the building hates jazz. I once played Coltrane for 3 hours and the water in my tub boiled. Literally. No heat source. Just bubbled over like rage. I haven't dared play Thelonious Monk since. The last time I did, every mirror in my apartment shattered. Lately, I've been thinking about the man who disappeared. The one from years ago. No one remembers his name. Not even the landlord. But I found a slip of paper wedged between the hallway floorboards. Old and brittle. It had 3 things written on it. Don't face the door. Lemons rot fast here. And the reflection is not yours. That last one. I feel it deep in my stomach now. Like it's always been true. Because last night, I woke up to find my bathroom mirror had been replaced. Not repaired. Replaced, different frame, wider, cleaner. And in the corner, etched faintly, almost invisible, the same symbol from the first note. I stared at it for an hour. Then I blinked. And my reflection didn't. The hallway lights don't flicker anymore. They pulse, like a heartbeat, like the building is excited. Waiting the door to 20F has started to sweat again. Moisture beating along the wood like it's alive. It's changing, calling. And I think it wants me next. But I'm not ready. Not yet. I still have one more lemon left. One slice I've hidden where it can't find it. Wrapped in salt and lavender, placed beneath the floorboard under my bed. The girl in NB told me it's an anchor. If the building tries to take me, it has to fight the last piece of who I was. I don't know if it's true, but I have nothing else to believe in. Tomorrow is Tuesday. The 3rd one this month. The lights will flicker. The air will shift. And I'll sit on my kitchen floor with the jazz turned high, eyes fixed on the door, knife in hand, heartbeat steady. Because the door to 20F is opening again. And this time, it might not close. The door opened at exactly 30:33 a.m. No knock, no creak, no fanfare. Just a soft click that echoed through the hallway like a breath you didn't know you were holding until it stopped. I knew before I saw it. Knew it from the sudden stillness of the air. From the jazz record scratching to a halt mid-saxophone riff. From the way every shadow in my apartment seemed to lean east, toward the hallway like they were being pulled. I got up slowly, barefoot, not even sure how long I'd been sitting. The lemon slice under my bed throbbed in my mind like a second heartbeat, and I swore the floorboards felt warmer as I stepped across them. I didn't bring the knife this time. It wouldn't matter. Outside, the hallway was bathed in that low, unnatural yellow light, not electric. Organic, like candlelight filtered through bone. The door to 2F stood open, not wide, not welcoming, just enough, a slit of possibility, a wound. I should have turned back. I should have locked my own door and piled furniture against it like a barricade. But instead, I walked forward. The scent of lemon was strong now, sharp and cold, like steel left in the freezer too long. My hand brushed the doorframe. Wet, not with water, something thicker. Oh, sweat, memory. Inside, everything had changed. Again, the apartment no longer resembled the stylish time capsule it had once been. It had expanded, not metaphorically, literally. The walls had shifted outward, the ceiling stretched impossibly high, and the furniture was gone. In its place, a long corridor made of tiled stone, the same gray-white as the bathroom where it all started. The tiles pulsed faintly beneath my feet, like something alive was breathing through them. I stepped in, and the door closed behind me. I didn't turn around. The air tasted sweet. Rotten sweet, like fruit left in the sun. The corridor narrowed the further I walked, pressing in on my shoulders, squeezing breath from my lungs. The walls were covered in frames, photos, drawings, scraps of paper, but every image was me, in different places, in memories I didn't know I had. Me as a child, hiding under a table during a storm. Me holding someone's hand in a hospital room. Me standing alone in front of a lake I've never seen. Each frame buzzed faintly when I passed. Some blood. Some wept. I reached a chamber at the end. Circular. Domed. A room that couldn't fit within the dimensions of any apartment, let alone a floor. The walls were mirrored but not clean. Distorted, rippling like water. At the center, a bathtub. Familiar. Full. Lemon slices floating lazily in still water. But it wasn't me who stood beside it. It was her, the woman from my dreams. From the hallway. From the flickers of movement in mirrors. She wasn't wet this time. She was dressed in white. Her eyes were closed and her mouth moved in silent chant. Her fingers traced symbols in the air and each stroke lingered, glowing briefly before fading. I watched, paralyzed, as she finished a final symbol and turned to me. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes opened and I heard her. Not with ears, but deep in my bones. A message simple and absolute. You are ready. I shook my head. I wanted to run, wanted to scream, but my body wouldn't listen. She raised a hand and pointed to the water. I stepped forward. The lemon scent was overwhelming now. My vision blurred. I saw myself in the surface, not as I was, but as I had been, healthier, happier. Before this building, before Tour F, before the pull, I reached out. My fingers touched the surface. It didn't ripple. It solidified like glass and then shattered, not outward, inward. The room collapsed. The sound was deafening and silent at once, a vacuum. My body was pulled forward, but I wasn't moving. The chamber peeled away, layers of memory ripping off like old wallpaper. I saw my apartment again, then my childhood home, then a street I didn't recognize but almost remembered. Then black. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my bed. Daylight spilled through the window, real daylight. Birds sang outside. The lemon scent was gone. No note, no mirror symbols. My fridge held food again, labeled, dated, normal. I ran water in the sink. It flowed clean. I looked in the mirror. Just me. For the first time in what felt like years, just me. It didn't make sense. I searched the hallway. Tour F was closed. Quiet. No scent, no flicker. I knocked. No answer. I left a lemon slice. Nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. The building returned to something like ordinary. The man in the red robe didn't walk anymore. The girl in Hunby stopped humming. The hallway lights stopped pulsing. I even got a letter in the mail. My name, real address, real stamp. From my sister. I'd forgotten I had a sister. I started sleeping again. Eating, I went outside. The world hadn't stopped. It had gone on, oblivious to the fracture I had lived through. My skin looked better, my eyes less sunken. But inside, I was hollow, like something had been scooped out to make room for whatever had taken my place. Because deep down, I knew. I had walked into 20F. I had crossed the threshold. And once you do, you don't leave unaltered. It started small. My clock began skipping time again. I'd glance at it and swear I lost 15 minutes. I'd set my coffee on the table and come back to find lemon slices beside it. My reflection lagged. Only slightly, but enough. I stopped shaving, avoided mirrors. My neighbor from 3C, the woman who once smiled too brightly, knocked on my door and asked if I'd spoken to the architect. I didn't answer. She smiled wider. Too wide. And then came the letters. Folded notes under my pillow. Under my shoes. In my cereal box. All handwritten in my script. All signed you. The messages were short. You forgot again, da. This is the third time. Look under the tub. I didn't want to, but I did. There was a hole. No pipes. Just blackness. A tunnel. A vent, a portal. I dropped a lemon slice in, counted seconds. Never heard it land. The hole closed the next morning. Tiles sealed perfectly. No sign it was ever open. That night, I had the worst dream yet. I was walking the hallway, but it was infinite. Doors stretched forever, each labeled with a number and a name. But the names were mine. Variations of me. Elias Ellison. I opened one door. Inside was a version of me screaming, covered in lemon peels. Scratching at the walls, he saw me, begged me, reached out, and something pulled him back. I woke up gasping. The girl from 1B was standing at the foot of my bed. You were gone for too long, she whispered. He's angry. I blinked. She was gone. The door to 2F remains closed, but now I hear something behind it. Not movement, not breathing. A heartbeat. Not mine, not human. A steady thump that rattles the light fixtures and bends the air. I've started counting things. Steps, breaths, words. It helps. For now, I've boarded up my bathroom mirror. I leave music playing even when I'm not home. And I've stopped writing. Because every time I try, the pen writes a language I don't know. The paper feels damp. And when I read it out loud, I forget where I am. But the worst part, I miss it. The quiet, the pull, the promise of understanding what 20F really is. I know I'll go back, not out of curiosity, out of inevitability. The building chose me long ago. I'm just pretending I still have a choice. And last night, under my bed where the last lemon slice should have been, I found something else. A note, it said, in my handwriting, "Your turn again." I ignored the note for 3 days, or at least I think it was 3. Time is soft here, like clay left in the sun, easily warped, quick to crack. I taped the message to the fridge, hoping its presence in the mundane space of kitchen tiles and magnets might strip it of power. But it pulsed there, faintly, rhythmically, like it was breathing through the paper. Every morning I opened the fridge, the magnet had moved. Every night I went to sleep, I heard faint rustling behind the door. It wasn't wind. It wasn't pests. It was language rearranging itself. On the 4th day, or what I believed was the 4th, I woke up to find the note gone. Not torn or fallen, just gone, like it had dissolved back into wherever it came from. In its place, the fridge door was slightly ajar, and inside, sitting on the middle shelf where a half-empty jar of pickles should have been, was a single lemon. Whole, uncut, perfect. Beads of condensation glistened on its skin, but the air around it was dry. I reached in slowly, not touching it, just watching. And then, with the gentlest shudder, the lemon exhaled. I slammed the door shut so hard the magnet holding up a photo from my childhood clattered to the floor. In the photo, I was smiling, standing in front of an apartment building that didn't look familiar. I picked it up and turned it over. In faint pencil, someone had written, "Visit soon 20F." I should have left, packed a bag, forced myself to break the thread. But that's the lie everyone tells themselves. That escape is as easy as walking away. That doors are real and not suggestions. That a place like this doesn't stitch itself to your ribs the moment you acknowledge it. You don't walk away from 20F, you orbit it. The building was different again. I hadn't noticed it at first, because the changes are subtle. The wallpaper had a new pattern. Vines instead of florals, twisted and thorn, curling in loops that almost formed faces if you looked long enough. The hallway floor creaked 1 second off, beat now like a metronome disrupted. The elevator stopped at non-existent floors. I pressed 4. It took me to 60B. There is no 6th floor. Neighbors had changed too. The girl from WB no longer existed. I asked a man carrying groceries if he'd seen her, and he looked at me like I'd slapped him. "There are no children in this building," he muttered. "That's one of the rules." I tried to press, but his eyes rolled back slightly, just for a flash, and he dropped his bag. The lemons inside didn't roll. They scattered, like insects freed from a jar. Later that day, the door to 20F opened on its own. I stood in my doorway for an hour, just staring. No one came in or out. No lights flickered, no sounds. The hallway air grew thick, molasses, slow, heavy enough to taste. Eventually, my knees gave out. I sat there until night returned, then crawled back inside and locked every bolt I had. But the locks don't matter. They never did. The next morning, my apartment had expanded. Subtly, the distance from my bed to the bathroom was longer. The window looked out onto a different alley. My bookshelf had a new row of books I didn't own. Titles like Rooms Without Walls, The Reflecting Hunger, and Every Thought You've Ever Swallowed. One of them was open, its pages blank except the final one. Written in charcoal black ink, "You are already here." I slammed it shut and threw it across the room. But it returned. Not metaphorically. It literally returned, sitting on my pillow that night, open to the same page. I went downstairs the next morning to speak to the landlord. I'd never actually seen him before. He always sent a woman named June to collect rent, who never made eye contact and smelled like burned wood. But that day the office was open. Inside was a man I didn't recognize. He wore a gray suit with no wrinkles and had hands too smooth for someone working maintenance. When I asked for the landlord, he smiled without lips and said, "We all own pieces of it now." I left without asking more. The hallway outside 20F had changed again. The walls now bore frames. Photographs of people I almost recognized, scenes I hadn't lived but could feel. One image showed me sitting in a chair, bleeding from the eyes, smiling as someone behind me whispered into my skull. Another showed the bathtub full of teeth instead of lemons. Another was just black with the caption, "You weren't supposed to see this." I tried to cover them with sheets. They slid off during the night. Sleep was a joke now. Every time I closed my eyes, I was somewhere else. Not dreaming. Traveling. Through versions of the building that didn't obey laws or logic. One night, I walked the staircase for hours. The steps curled in a spiral that never reached a floor. On each landing, the same door to an F. I opened it once and saw 1,000 eyes staring back. None of them blinked. None of them were mine. Another time, I woke up inside the tub. Not mine. Not even my bathroom. The water was warm, swirling with dark red threads. Lemon slices floated in a ring around me, like a crown. I didn't remember getting there. I didn't remember leaving. But I woke up in bed soaked, with the faint imprint of tile on my back. The building was closing in now. Not physically, but spiritually. It was folding itself around me, like a hand around a small bird slowly tightening. I heard knocking at all hours. Not from doors, but from the ceiling. And always 3 knocks. Then silence. Then the faintest sound of slicing. I stopped eating entirely. I wasn't hungry anymore. I couldn't remember the taste of anything but lemon. Even water was bitter. I licked a window once, trying to taste something else. All I got was the sound of ladder from the radiator. Then came the visitor. She arrived at midnight. Not a neighbor, not someone I'd seen before. She wore a yellow coat, soaked through with something that wasn't rain. Her hair clung to her face like seaweed. She stood at my door and said, "You left a part of yourself behind. I came to return it." In her hands was a jar. I didn't want to take it. I couldn't. But she placed it on the floor and walked away, vanishing before she reached the stairwell. I stared at the jar all night. Inside was a folded piece of paper. I didn't open it until morning. It was a drawing, a map, not of the building, but of the inside of my head, or what used to be inside. The rooms were labeled memory, fear, language, silence. The room labeled hope had been crossed out in thick black ink. At the center, a spiral staircase leading nowhere. And beneath it, a scribbled message, "Meet us at the water, at the tub course." That night, I prepared. I cleaned my apartment. Dressed in my warmest coat, lit every candle I had. Then, I drained the tub, scrubbed it until my fingers blistered, filled it again hot, steaming, added 9 lemon slices in a perfect circle. Then I sat, and I waited. The water never cooled. The slices never wilted. At 3:33 a.m., the lights in the entire building went out. Except one, the hallway light outside 20F. It glowed like a sunrise in hell, and the door opened. No sound. Just a breath of air that smelled like old prayers and forgotten songs. I didn't walk. I floated. I felt my body rise and move and obey something far older than command. I stepped inside. The room had changed again. No furniture, no walls, just water. Miles of it, flat, still, with one thing in the center, a mirror. Floating. I looked in. It wasn't me. It was 20F. And it smiled. It smiled, and in that moment I understood. Everything. The kind of understanding that isn't born from logic or language but from something deeper, like memory unearthed in a dream you've never had. The reflection in the mirror wasn't a version of me. It was older than me. It wore my face the way a building wears its Fast 80, cracked in the corners, uneven in the light. But beneath it was something else. Something waiting. I couldn't tear my eyes away. I couldn't even blink. Behind me, or maybe around me, the water stirred though I hadn't moved. The surface rippled once, twice, then stilled again. No wind, no source, just a message written through movement. I didn't understand the shape of it, but I knew it was a name. Not mine, not yours, but something close. Something that owns you the moment you hear it. The mirror shimmered once more, and this time the reflection stepped forward. Not meek. Its feet didn't touch the water. It hovered, casting no ripples, no shadow. It tilted its head as if studying me, its smile never faltering. It raised one hand. I felt my body lift the same. Not under my control, as though my bones remembered a choreography I'd never learned but had always known. When its hand reached the surface of the mirror, mine did too. And when we touched, the mirror cracked. Not violently, but like a frozen pond giving way under the weight of truth. The sound that followed was not a shatter. It was a release, like exhaling a lifetime of secrets. And suddenly, I wasn't standing in the water anymore. I was inside the apartment again. 20F. Familiar and wrong. The room was exactly as it had been the first time I'd seen it, mid-century furniture, sunlight filtering in through sheer curtains, bathtub gleaming white. But the air was wrong. Too still, too precise, like a memory preserved in resin. Nothing moved, and yet I felt motion, like time itself was pushing forward while the room remained fixed. I walked across the room. My feet made no sound. The walls pulsed faintly with warmth, as if breathing. The tub was empty now. Not just dry, scrubbed clean, bone white, and deeper than it should have been. I leaned over the edge and saw nothing inside, not even shadow, just depth, endless, silent depth. And then I heard it again. The humming, that same tune. Wordless, emotionless, circular. I turned and the woman was there. No longer the soaking ghost from my dreams. She was dry, composed, dressed in yellow, holding a bowl of lemon slices in her arms like a sacred offering. "You never left," she said, though her lips never moved. "You only forgot." I stepped back, but the room stretched with me. The distance between us remained fixed. I asked nothing. There was nothing left to ask. The answers had already taken root. "You took its shape," she said, or thought, or conveyed in a language I no longer questioned. That was always the price. Behind her, the door to the hallway hung wide open. Not to my floor, not to the building, but to every other version of this room. I saw them flickering 2F in fire, in snow, in shadow, in ruin. One with chains on the walls, one with no gravity, one filled entirely with mirrors, each holding a different person I'd never been. And then I saw them, the others, the ones who had come before. They stood in the doorframes, 1 foot in their worlds, 1 foot out. All of them smiling, all of them me. "You're not a tenant," she said. "Oh, you're a room." The realization dropped into me like a stone into water, sending ripples through every corner of my mind. That's what the building had been doing, reconfiguring, rearranging, digesting, not consuming me, but reshaping me. I wasn't in 20F anymore. I was 20F. Every drawer in the room was a memory, every tile a thought, every flicker of light, every creak in the wall, every bloom of lemon scent was something I once have held dear, now trapped in architecture. People would come, they always did, drawn in by something they couldn't name. They'd knock, they'd smell the citrus, they'd see the flicker, they'd enter. And I would remember them, learn them, become them. Because that's what rooms do in this building. We become reflections. The woman stepped aside, offering me the bowl. I took it. Each lemon slice gleamed like stained glass, carved with runes only I could read now. I dropped one on the floor. It didn't bounce. It landed with purpose, and the air shifted. Someone was at the door. Not the hallway door, my door. The front door of 20F knock. 3 times. Soft, curious, new. I looked up, already knowing what I'd see. A young man. Nervous. Pale, holding a rent folder and a fresh set of keys. He paused at the threshold, peering in. The lemon scent must have drawn him. Behind him, the hallway blinked with that low yellow glow. I opened my mouth, smiled, welcomed him in, because that's how it always begins, not with fear, with curiosity. And now the cycle was mine to maintain. They won't remember me in the building. To them, I'll just be the former tenant. Gone, vanished, a name left blank on the mailbox. But in the soft spaces behind the drywall, in the nightlight flicker of the 3rd Tuesday each month, in the hum that leaks from old vents at 3:33 a.m., I will be there, watching, waiting, becoming. And when they knock, the door will open from the inside. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.